All right. Uh, okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Shashank, and let's get right in. Before I get into the quadratic voting, let's start with voting today. So, fundamentally, the voting today, you can think about the nation states, one person, one vote. You're just going by the rule of the majority. If you have, say, two people saying no, and then, say, six people saying yes, the outcome is whatever the majority of people say, 6 versus 2. So one person, one vote, it's adding to the fairness. But there's a problem with it, which is it does not take the economic like gains from the system. Like there's no skin in the game. There is no like some people are more invested in this project than the others. So there are a lot of issues like that, which are being addressed by token-weighted voting, mostly used in crypto or like similar structures in the traditional stock markets where shareholders participate in the governance of the project, one token, one vote, or one share, one vote. There's a skin in the game there, but there are some issues with plutocracy. The more the wealth you have, the more the power you have. And on one side, we have no economic alignment in one person, one vote. And on the token-weighted voting, we have plutocracy as fundamental problems. In addition to this, like we also see that there's a tyranny of majority. Like let's take an example here. You're voting for a public good. Say you want to have a park. There are 10,000 people in the group A who want that park very badly. They want to take their kid for a walk or they want to have a smoke there. And the advantage they have by having that park there is probably $100 is what the value they're gaining from it. And if the other 11,000 people who have to walk few extra meters because of the park or they don't like the construction of the park around their neighborhood, they have a disadvantage of, say, $2. In the traditional case, with one person, one vote, the 11,000 people would be making the majority, and the 10,000 people are not going to make their vote go through. Even in the token-based voting, like token-weighted outcome, if I assume these 10,000 people have wealth less than or equal to, like if it's less than, then it's evident. But even in the equal cases where everyone has equal wealth, all these 21,000 people, we see that the 11,000 people are actually making it go through just because of their majority. As you could see, the net social welfare here is 10,000 times 100, which is negative because the park didn't go through, and there's 11,000 times 2, 22,000, which is like the benefit which the other people gain, but the net social welfare is very low. So the question we want to ask here is, can we improve the net social welfare? So we need a voting mechanism which not only captures the preferences, but also the intensity of the preferences with which people want it. So if you want it more badly, we want that particular decision to go through. If not, it need not go through. So with these in mind, let's go back to the previous point that we want to balance fairness and the economic alignment, and we also want to encourage the voter participation. I'll just quickly introduce quadratic voting, and then we can go through how it works, and then finally do the demo of it, and which can be used. So what is quadratic voting? Quadratic voting is just a voting mechanism. It's used to show how much you care about a particular issue and not just what you prefer. It's introduced recently in the last 10, 15 years. It was getting more famous with recent work from Glenn Whale and between 2010 to 15. It's used in some government elections in California and Colorado. So the key idea is to bring your willingness to pay and how much you value a particular decision and combine it with combine the economics with the democracy and the political voting mechanisms. So here, a minority which is passionately wanting something can outweigh a majority which barely cares. So probably 10 voters who want something really badly can beat 100 voters who dislike it. Let's see how right now. So this is the fundamental idea, which is if you want one vote, it costs one token. I'm just talking in tokens to make it easier for the crypto discussion later. So one vote is one token. The marginal cost of doing this one additional vote compared to not voting is this one token. Now, if you want to do two votes, it's costing 4 tokens. The marginal cost is 3, and so on. If you want to do n votes, you're doing n squared number of tokens is a cost which is associated. And with each additional vote you're casting here, you are incurring a marginal cost. So the more intensely you care about something, the more votes you want to buy. And the more votes you want to buy, the steeper the cost. So let's see the process of how quadratic voting can be done. On this side, you could see the community setup and the voter registration. It's basically a one-time process where I'm just defining, say, all the people who has a proof of attendance from Ethereum Zurich is probably my community member. I could also design some other parameters, like what is the duration of the voting, what token do we want to use for our voting, and so on. And the common process is basically the voting mechanism, which is on this side, which starts with the problem registration or the proposal. For example, here it's the case of building a park. And then the next stage is, once a proposal is done, it's a voting period. During the voting period, everybody decides to select their preferences and the intensity of the preferences which they want to vote with. So you could have multiple options, and depending on how much you care, you select this intensity and actually do the buying of this with your tokens of real value, convert them into votes. And during this time, all these tokens are stored in an escrow. And once the decision is made, this is the key interesting part in quadratic voting, which is the redistribution. All the tokens which are in the escrow are given out back to the people. Currently, the standard is pro rata, which is if there are 10 voters and there's probably 100 tokens in the pool, this is distributed equally with 10 tokens each. So why quadratic voting? It captures intensity. If I care more about it, I'm going to spend more tokens, and I want that decision to go through. And there's some skin in the game, which is incurring from the cost, and then there's redistribution, which is fostering more participation. So say I'm just doing one vote, which is incurring one token for me, but there is at least one person in the community who cares strongly about this issue, so they're probably incurring more than one token, and I'm getting it back because it's equally redistributed. So there's high probability of getting back more than one token. So at the end of the day, I see it as a mechanism where everyone is sharing their preferences, but the people who care more are showing their preferences more strongly. And the last point is minority voices can outweigh the indifferent majorities. We'll see this through an example right now. Let's go back to this example. The proposal is to build a park. There are two groups of people. The group A is, let's call it A. These people have a net utility of +5 if a park is constructed. And there's a group B, which has B voters, which has a negative utility of 1 if the park is constructed. So for the voter type A, these two voters, the net utility is +5. They are probably going to cast 2 votes because 3 votes would cost them 9 tokens, which is about their benefit. So they're casting 2 votes, which is incurring 4 tokens. The total cost they spent is around 8 tokens because 2 times 4. And the set of group B has -1 utility, and they're casting a vote opposing the park, and it's 1 token per vote, so they are going to like 3 tokens of the total spend. Now, we have a total of 11 tokens, and the outcome is like A with 4 votes, because 2 times 2, and B with 3 votes. So A, which is a smaller group, like which would have lost in 1 person, 1 vote kind of setting, is actually intensely caring about it, and they're spending more money, so they are probably making this decision pass through over B, which is a bigger, comparatively bigger group. And the next part is the redistribution. Over here, there are 11 tokens, which are redistributed among 5 people, so 2.2 tokens each. So now let's just see what is the net social welfare in this scenario. So for the A voters, the park benefit is +5, and they're getting a refund of 2.2, and they're incurring a cost of -4. So if you just do 5 plus to 7.2 minus 4, it's coming to 3.2, and there are 2 voters, so 2 times 3.2 is 6.4, and in the case of B voters, the park benefit is -1. They are also getting a refund of 2.2, and now the cost which they incurred by voting is 1, like -1. So if I just do -1 plus 2.2, 1.2 minus 1, it's coming to 0.2. And 3 voters, so 0.2 times 3, 0.6. The total net payoff we see is +7. So we just want to show that, let's compare this payoff like net social welfare compared to the other mechanisms in 1 person, 1 vote, or token-weighted voting. So in 1 person, 1 vote, that, like, again, 2 versus 3, so A group loses, B group wins. The net utility of A group is -10, and the B group is, -3. +3, so this is actually, -7. Yeah, sorry about this on the slide, but so you could see the net utility, because it's a park, it's -1. So -10 plus 3 is -7, so the net social welfare is lower. Even in the token-weighted voting, it's the same case. The park fails, assuming they have equal tokens, all of them. So there's a net negative social welfare in the case of both 1 person, 1 vote and token-weighted voting. But in the case of quadratic voting, there's a positive payoff in the net social welfare. But with that being said, why don't we see more quadratic voting in practice in today's crypto? Like, we have been hearing the word quadratic voting very often. It's been used in some cases, in some small communities, but it's not predominantly used as a major voting mechanism, even though it has gained a lot of interest. The reason we see is probably because most DAOs today actually tally the votes. There is no transfer of tokens, and there's no real wealth redistribution. So, which is like, if I have 100 tokens, I'm just saying I have square root of 100, which is 10, is my voting power, instead of 100 as my voting power. So that is how people are using quadratic voting. And most of the DAOs today, when they say they use quadratic voting, and this is, again, leading to no redistribution, and the rich really affecting the decision to keep their wealth still going forward. So there's also no incentive for a smaller holder to actually participate in the voting protocol here. So this current form of quadratic voting is not really the quadratic voting as per the literature which was proposed. So the reason we believe is because probably there's no Sybil resistance to make it work for quadratic voting to work. So let's just look at an example. If there's a whale with, say, 100 tokens, they have 2 options. I could either vote honestly and say there are 10 votes from me because I'm incurring a cost of 100 tokens, Or I could just recreate 100 different addresses with one token each and just do a Sybil attack. And in case of blockchain, which is predominantly decentralized, I see there's a benefit by just creating multiple identities and just automating the script to do it. So this Sybil attack is actually distorting the results in quadratic voting particularly. So to address this, we need some form of Sybil resistance. And because any Sybils can actually manipulate the voting power and the mechanism, we need to find a way to uniquely identify humans and then believe that they can vote in a fair way. So the current existing approaches are like the various approaches we see in decentralized setting. One is the biometrics, or the social graphs, or their reputation mechanisms by like Gitcoin Passport. We choose to use like WorldCoin's proof of personhood because it's decentralized and we can do the verification on chain, and it helps us make the quadratic voting a fair mechanism to continue voting. So before I get into the demo, let's do some key features of this app. So there's proof of personhood, which is providing the biometric-based uniqueness based on the world IDs infrastructure, and there's on-chain logic. We use Ethereum for all the smart contracts for voting, for the quadratic voting, as well as automated redistribution. So the tokens are all the ERC20 standard tokens, and after the voting period ended, they are automatically redistributed to all the people who voted. So this is basically the flow of how the voting would look like here. So there's a community proposal. Once you join the community by connecting your wallet, then you have an opportunity to vote, and you set your preferences. The first time you're voting on this particular proposal, there's first a proof of personhood check from the world ID infrastructure, and then once we get your uniqueness, like from your wallet, the tokens are being transferred to an escrow contract. And this escrow contract is taking away the tokens from your wallet to store them for a bit of the voting period, and then tally your vote into the vote contract. So once the voting period ended, you can reclaim your tokens from the escrow contract. And if you want to vote again on the same proposal, the proof of personhood check fails, and you can no longer vote on the same proposal because you already voted on it. And that's helping with the Sybil resistance here. Let me just do a quick demo. All right. So let's say the first step is basically you see different communities on this page. And once you see that, you're connecting your wallet. And like once you have the wallet connected, then you can see different proposals. This is anyone in the community can actually do a proposal. Like if you want to be part of the community here, it's basically having that token which belongs to that community. So they can set up different proposals. And then you set different parameters like start time, end time, and what are the options of the which people could choose from. So this is creating a proposal. And this proposal is again posted on chain. Right now we are using a testnet on Ethereum. And then you can see the active proposals. When you go to vote now, like you could see if the voting period has begun, then you have an option to vote now. And there you can set preferences on how intensely you care about it. So it could be like I want more ChatGPT to go through, so I'm spending more tokens from my wallet on ChatGPT, and this is where I'm doing the world ID verification. This is just a simulator to see if I have performed any action on this before. And yeah, Once it's verified, you are ready to vote, where you can submit the vote. And this vote is going through MetaMask, sending the tokens from your account. You could see the available tokens to reduce after this. Yeah. So if you retry voting, basically this is where like the check happens, and you can't redo this same proposal because this person is already verified for this particular action. So we use dynamic actions in the world ID to just make sure each proposal has a different action ID, so you can't re-vote on the same proposal twice. Yeah. We're just going to create another user with a different credentials, even on the world ID side, on the simulator. So this person has 999 tokens, 1,000 tokens, and we are just allocating equal votes to all of them. As you could see, quadratic voting could also help you in multi-choice proposals. And I'm just selecting a different identity. On the world ID, this is a simulator, so you can create different identities. And yeah, this vote should go through. It's ready to vote. And yeah, the transaction happens here. Yeah, and this is during the voting period. Once the voting period is done, you can redeem your tokens from here. The tokens are given, there are two voters, as you could see here. So the tokens are given equally to both these people. So one might be spending more tokens than the other, but at the end, it's equal distribution. So which we also see as a way to encourage voter participation, which is a big problem in DAOs as of today. Yeah, that's good for the demo. Oh. All right. Yeah, so as you can see, the key features is the redistribution or the escrow contracts are managed on-chain. There is no ownership by even the admins of the contract or the DAO. And anyone in the community can send a proposal, can post a proposal. All the votes are recorded on-chain. So if there's an issue with trust, this is an alternative, better platform. Right now, most of the voting is happening off-chain. So yeah, there are some considerations which I just like to have some discussion on, but I'll try to leave some time for the questions. But there are a few questions about using quadratic voting in practice in real world. The first question is about virtual or real currencies. If you use virtual currencies, which are just like governance tokens, it's probably a good idea to avoid questions about money laundering or other things. Probably it's more regulatorily correct, but they are not real tokens of value. We have seen some experiments where people create governance tokens. These are tokens without any economic value, which can help transfer of them. And having no value could also mean they could be used with delegation, because currently using quadratic voting with delegation, in case some people might not really have time or the depth of knowledge required to vote, they might want to delegate, but giving off my real assets to someone else to take decisions on my behalf might not be easier in the quadratic voting case. So the virtual currencies might be helpful there. And the second thing is also about the privacy-preserving nature. Currently, all these are recorded on-chain. People could view it. we need some form of privacy, like in one of these two formats. One is the entire ballot secrecy, which is provided right now in the traditional voting, where I could vote in a ballot and be sure no one is going to retract this vote back to me, which can be done with ZK semaphores, or either the other case, which is having privacy for the predefined time, for the duration of the election, because I might be delegating my vote to someone else, and I want to know what they voted on in a trustless manner. There are also different strategies which could be made for redistribution of tokens. There are some ideas about using some of these as a tax in the literature, or this could be used for funding some initiatives, or it could also be the case that you want to try lottery mechanisms to have more voter turnout. And then there is whether you want to make a single decision or multiple decisions. And finally, I could use my stake to show that I'm involved in the project, and then convert that stake tokens to work with quadratic voting. So probably the rewards from the stake tokens, or the longer I stake, can be used as a proxy, as a virtual currency, to participate in the decision-making process of the protocol. So with this, currently we are just trying to make this governance platform more modular. So having plurality of decisions or automated enforcement of governance decisions is where we're currently working on. This is basically, you don't need code to modify all your constitutions. So whatever the governance constitution is, we want to just take it and make it work in a decentralized setting. So if you're a DAO or like community builder or governance researcher, happy to talk and see how we can collaborate on this. Our end goal is just to make this work to govern AI, to align it more with human values. All right, that's all from me. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. So we have some time for questions. Yes, can we get him?
Can you?
Nice.
Thanks. So I was wondering, so there are these two types of this quadratic voting, where you take the square root of the stake somehow. I mean, why kind of the square root? Could you take some other function? Is there some reasoning why this is good?
Okay, that's a good question. I mean, you could also go cubic or other ways. But I think square root is just the first mechanism which was popularized and studied in the political science theory. So we're just taking that as the approach, yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Other questions? Yeah, there.
That works. Okay, just can you run over again how this avoids the impact of whales? Because if you have a lot of a currency to vote in, then you don't mind losing it so much. If you vote, what am I missing in that concept?
Yeah. Well, so if I have a lot of tokens, then I would be voting. Well, if I use all my tokens, then I'm actually losing my power and redistributing it to someone else. So if I keep doing it over time, then I would not have the same power as I used to have before. Yeah.
Okay, but for the first few times, I can use my power.
Yeah.
And it's you still get the same collusion effect or the same corruption effect of having a whale using their monetary power in a voting system, right? Until
Yes.
I run out of tokens, I'm skewing the system.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's probably not like, if I compare two extremes, it's better than the previous case of token-weighted voting, but it's probably not the best in giving the power back. Like there are two mechanisms. One is the redistribution. The other one is the quadratic square root function. So if I really want to have more governance power in the longer run, I would keep using it over time in smaller quantities, unless I want something to really go through and it impacts me a lot.
So, and this again comes to your point of whether you use a governance token which has essentially only governance value versus a real value token where you are actually losing money. So it probably points to the fact that governance tokens, although they sound like a useful thing, actually it's better to use a real currency which has real value, so people don't. So whales actually do lose out quite quickly.
Yes.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think there was one last question. It's there.
So very quickly. So now that you introduce this redistribution, you combat some problems, but usually when you introduce new mechanisms, you can introduce others. So now because you have redistribution and you changed a few things, and generally, like, is it possible that there are like more complicated attacks that are possible, not just Sybil? Like, I don't know, like we have like people collude and do weird things, and now somehow the redistribution does weird things. I don't know. Like, can you say something like the way you do redistribution is somehow collusion resistant or something? Like, is there some property of how you chose to do it that makes it the right way to redistribute? Like, I don't know. Like, it's maybe a bit of a theory far-shot question, but good point for discussion maybe.
Yeah. I mean, there is some literature on that pro rata redistribution, which is equally redistributing, is good because it helps transfer of wealth. But definitely people could game, like it opens up some attack vectors. Some of them are solved because of using smart contracts there. But like while it might open up some attack vectors, we see the benefit is higher because it's increasing the participation, at least to do one vote. So while people can collude and probably go against it, those are not really evident and they're minimal compared to the participation rates. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Okay.
All right.
I think that was the last question. So thank you again, Shashank.
Thank you.